Hello everybody and welcome to a recommendations video. This one we're doing a little bit different because I was sitting here and I wanted to give you guys some book recommendations, and then I was thinking to myself, what's the theme here? What are we gonna do? How am I gonna recommend books? And then I just, turn around in my chair, I'm looking at my shelves, and then I think to myself, why not just take everybody through my shelves? Recommend you guys the books off of my personal library that I think that everybody needs to read. Basically, it's kind of like an in-depth bookshelf tour, but really we're just going to go shelf by shelf, and I'm going to be pulling off the books from those shelves that I think are no skips, that I would absolutely recommend, that are my favorites off of each shelf. So essentially, we're going to be picking from my library of the books that I think you cannot skip. You need to read. So these are going to kind of be like 3-star and above books for me, but genuinely just like when I look at the shelves, what I think that everybody should read. Wow. If there was a trophy for over-explaining literally the simplest of concepts that you have ever seen in your life, it would go to me. Every single time. Let's get to the shelves, start recommending some books, but first, let's say a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video, which is none other than Squarespace. Hello everyone, I'm here to tell you guys about Squarespace. I know you guys have heard me talk about them so many times before on the channel, but I have some new things to talk to you guys about. I have recently been working on revamping my website on Squarespace, and to do that, I had to start completely from scratch. To scroll through their website, I scroll through all of their templates, but I personally used Squarespace's Design Intelligence to help me build my website. This cutting edge AI technology helped me to curate the perfect color scheme and overall vibe that I wanted for my website. Also, if you guys are interested in starting your own Squarespace website, they have so many new features that are absolutely amazing. First of all, we have Squarespace Payments. It's the easiest way to manage your payments all in one place with Squarespace. Onboarding is fast and simple. You can get started in just a few clicks and start receiving payments right away. Also, they offer email campaigns, which gives you all the tools you need to engage with your subscribers. It helps you simplify your audience management. It helps you set up automated emails while saving time, and helps you easily integrate your products into emails to drive sales and increase site traffic. So again, if you guys are interested, you guys can head on over to squarespace.com to start your free trial. When you guys are ready to launch, you guys can head over to squarespace.com/DestinySaidWell to get 10% off your first purchase of the website or domain. As always, thank you so much again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Let's get into some recommendations. Okay, now that we're back, welcome. We're going to start with this shelf over here. This shelf holds some seasonal stuff up here, and then it's mostly just thrillers and kind of like young adult mystery series. Okay, so over here, this is actually pretty appropriate since we are going into the holiday season. I have some Christmas books up top here. Let's see. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. Some of these, most of them, I have not read. Yeah, so honestly, I have two that I personally actually really enjoyed and I thought were a really fun time on my holiday romance shelf. First of all, we have Baggage Claim. I really recommend this one because if you want something that's going to get you in that Christmassy vibe and feel, but is not too holiday-ish, like sometimes you're not in for like a Hallmark Christmassy feel, and that's honestly what most of these like Christmas centered books are. I would recommend Baggage Claim. It's basically about the guy, he works at the ski resort, she goes to said ski resort, they have to fake date, if I'm remembering it correctly. Pretty sure I'm remembering it correctly. It takes place around Christmas time, but it's just really good. Wow, did you guys think it was really good? Is that why I'm recommending it? We also have The Holiday Swap. Now this is your like straight up Hallmark plot, Hallmark everything. These two twins, they switch places. One of them still works in their small town at a bakery, and the other one is this like famous chef, like has her own TV show, kind of like a baking competition show, and they switch places. Oh wait, I also forgot Love Light Farms. This is actually a pretty well-loved series. I will say that I have not read the remainder of the series. I do think I have it on my physical TBR somewhere, at least one of the next book. Again, if you want a book that feels Christmassy but is not too Christmassy, which I feel like you don't usually get with these like rom-coms, I would definitely recommend Love Light Farm. Ow, I just stubbed my toe. Now we're on to my kind of fall reads shelf, which actually quite a bit of these I actually haven't read either. If you're wanting cute witchy romances, definitely the Ex-Hex. This one I read a few years ago on Halloween, and this one just like holds so much sentimental value to me for some reason. I literally have a vlog. It's like one of the first vlogs on my vlog playlist on my channel, and I read this in said vlog, and I just remember having like the best time. Literally feels like Gilmore Girls, Halloween Town, super cute and witchy. It's so much fun. There's also a second book, which is The Kiss Curse. This one is, I think, following the cousin and then the guy's brother from the first book. I just got scared by Charlie in the corner. I was like, what is in the corner of my room? It's literally my dog. I don't know what else I would have thought it would have been. Anyway, moving on. On that same topic of just cute, witchy fun, we have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This is always a mouthful to say. The definition of just such a cozy romance base. You're following our main character who is a witch, and she does these like videos on TikTok, and people think that it's like fake, but she's a real witch. And she basically, nobody like in this society tells people that you're a witch, but then she hears about this job that there are these like, is it 3 or 4 little girls who need help like learning their powers? So she moves to this house to help them, and there's this grumpy librarian that's very protective of the girls. It is so cute and heartwarming. Ooh, also this one was a really fun one, and it reminds me that I have the second book that just came out. I wanted to borrow it from the library, and that loan is ready, so I need to get that loan. But that is My Roommate is a Vampire. I read this last year. It's just that definition of just so much fun. Basically, our main character sees this listing on Craigslist for like a roommate, but the apartment is so nice, like unbelievably nice, and she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna take this opportunity. And she just starts noticing that her roommate has just these like weird patterns of sleep, and there's weird stuff in the fridge and everything like that. But the guy in this book, like, he was just so endearing. I'm actually really excited to read the second one because the guy that it's following, the dynamic with the main guy from this book was really fun, so I'm excited to hear about his book. The trash running, I was like, what was that sound? Next up, I also have If We Were Villains. This is that dark academia vibe. In this book, they are really heavily into Shakespeare, so I would say if you're wanting to look for like a dark academia, but you don't know a lot about Shakespeare, don't fret. Like, if that's something that's kept you from this book, don't worry, because I am somebody who knows pretty much nothing about Shakespeare in the grand scheme of things. It is something I would love to have more knowledge on. It didn't take away from the fact, and this is actually last year I did this video where I just read a bunch of like the most, you know, well-loved dark academia books. This one was definitely my favorite that I read. Also, I have these cute little mini books over here. So these 2 books, we have The Midnight Club and No Exit by Taylor Adams. I really enjoy Taylor Adams thrillers, and I love No Exit. This one's one that I always recommend for like the winter time because it takes place during a winter storm. She has to pull off to this rest stop, and she literally cannot leave. She's in the rest stop with a bunch of strangers. They're all snowed in together, and when she goes out to her car to kind of check something out, she finds a little girl in the back of the van, so she's trying to figure out whose van this is and then how to get them out of the situation. Okay, moving down a little bit. Oh, this is gonna bother some of you. I should fix it, huh? I like that jelly cat because it looks like Charlie. Down here are my thrillers. Now, you guys know I read quite a bit of them, but they never get rated highly from me. So I'm just going to show you guys the thrillers that like I just hold in like high regards. Like, I love them. First of all, we have Riley Sager's The House Across the Lake. I liked the twisty turdiness and just the overall vibe of this one. If you're wanting to look for one to read like in the summertime, this is one that I read kind of coming up on that season, and I really like it. You just kind of have this woman who's nosy, and she's spying on the people across from her, and she sees some weird stuff going on, and she wants to investigate. Next up, we have Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True. This is one where I feel like Lisa Jewell as an author is definitely more like darker in vibe of everything that she's doing, but I really like this one because of the formatting of this book was very interesting. I've heard that the audiobook is absolutely amazing. You're following where some of it is told in kind of like showing you through writing and like describing a Netflix documentary. You're getting some of the like podcast transcripts, and then you're just like reading actual chapters. It's very twisty, turny, and like I said, it's a little bit more dark from what I've read from Lisa Jewell. She just seems to take on that edge. Murder Road by Simone St. James. This one is a fun time. You're following a newly married couple, and they are on their way to their honeymoon. They're driving down this road late at night, and it's called Murder Road, and it's infamous because a lot of people have died on this road and been found on throughout the years, and they come in contact with this girl. They're trying to save her. They get caught up in this mess. They're trying to figure out what's happened on this road, what's going on in this small town. The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This is one of my 5-star thrillers. I love this book so much. It is about this girl, and she is isolated at this cabin house sitting. Like, imagine kind of like a beach town lake house vibe. It's raining one night. She reads this book. She gives it a 1-star rant review. We've all been there. Have you seen my channel? And then basically the author starts stalking her and tries to kill her. It's a very fun time. This one is a more sci-fi approach to a thriller, and that is The Passenger. Imagine everybody, all of the main characters are essentially in what is a Tesla. They don't call it a Tesla, but you get that it's a Tesla, but allegedly a Tesla. They're not actual Teslas, but you know, to their cars, and then somebody hacks into the system and broadcasts out to society that they're all going to die in these cars. You know, I think that there's something going on, like there's cameras hidden in the car, it's broadcasted. Oh, which of these people should we save and who should we kill first? Like, that's the whole entire thing. Very interesting, honestly. I actually bring this book up all of the time, like a lot in my personal life, and I don't feel like I ever recommend it. We're still on the topic of thrillers down here. First of all, we have Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors, another one of my 5-star ones. I just feel like this one's also really good for the winter months that we're going into. This one, again, I just feel like, is this the only Alice Feeney that I've ever read? I think so. That's really surprising. I should definitely pick up another one, because the way that I would think so many times I knew it was going on, but I didn't. But it wasn't like one of those where you think you know what's going on, but then the author pulls like a plot twist that makes absolutely zero sense just to be like, ha, gotcha. No, it wasn't the obvious thing. Instead, it's something that makes absolutely no sense, but I'm just doing it that way nobody could ever guess it, because it just does not make sense to the story. Alice Feeney doesn't do that. You have goosebumps because you just feel like something's wrong type of way. Okay, is there anything else? Oh, yeah. Okay. We have Final Girls by Riley Sager. This one I found very enjoyable because it was very reminiscent of feeling like a slasher vibe to me. And if you guys don't know or have never seen me before, I really enjoy slasher movies, so I like when thrillers feel like a slasher movie. And the premise of this one, all of the women in this book are final girls. Like, they have been a part of a very big like mass, you know, some accident that has happened at the hands of a murderer, and they're a final girl. I'm trying to say this in a way like that YouTube won't take this video down, and basically somebody starts targeting all of these final girls, and you're trying to figure out why. This video would be like a lot more negative if I was like, hey, do you want to know what I don't recommend? Here they are. Time for us to go down. Hello, now we're down on this level a little bit. So down here, these are getting into our kind of, well, some of these are just like brightly colored cozy mysteries, or just mysteries, or just miscellaneous. And then we get into some young adult. So this is very interesting. Okay, first of all, I'm going to recommend Boney Awad. Boney Awad. When I tell you that my mind is just not working today, Bunny by Mona Awad. This, I feel like if you are kind of, I don't even know what, in a literary space, you have probably seen this book. And this book is definitely kind of like fictional horror, kind of goes on that line of it a little bit. When I read this book a few years ago, I think back in like 2022. Yeah, 2022. Yeah. I don't think that I really liked it or appreciated it, but as the years have went on, I do look back at this book and I think it's just a very interesting book. Again, if you want kind of that horror vibe in a fiction, I would definitely recommend. It's very twisty and turny. Kind of gives you a little bit of dark academia, because it takes place at a college and she joins the sorority of these just peculiar girls. They are into some weird stuff. They call each other Bunny. Like it's... And stuff gets interesting. You literally will probably have to Google what this book means to my life existence after you're done with it. Okay, if you want a cozy mystery, Dial A for Aunties is such a fun, witty, and good time. Like, just basically you have our main character, she goes on this date, accidentally kills him, and then she calls up her aunties, and she's like, hey, I killed this man. How do we hide it? And it's so much fun. Okay, then we have The Silent Patient. But this book got me. Like, it got me in, again, one of those ways where I was listening to the audiobook of this when I was in high school. That's crazy. I was a senior in high school and I was listening to this audiobook during art class one day. Some books just stick with you, okay? And I remember like the reveal and everything of what was happening in the book, and I was just flabbergasted, okay? And again, similar to rock, paper, scissors, I was like, okay, I love when it can do a plot twist that makes sense and doesn't just come out of nowhere, and he definitely did this with this book. However, I have read like his other 2 books, and they just do not hit the same as The Silent Patient. Okay, okay. A young adult dystopian kind of horror vibe, I would definitely recommend The Grace Year. This plot is so cool. So basically, in this dystopian world, there is the grace year that all of these girls have to go on when they are a certain age. I forget, is it 16? Something like that. I don't know. They get sent out to the woods for a year, and nobody ever talks about what happens during the grace year. Like, when you were going into it, you do not know what to expect, because even when the girls come back, nobody talks about it, because basically the town sends them out because they're like, these girls have like magic and they're witches low-key, and we have to send them out to the woods so that their magic leaves them and they're not dangerous to society when they come back. And stuff gets weird. Okay, if you're wanting an 80s Stranger Things vibe, I would recommend Dead Flip. Basically, you're following a friend group, and when they were younger, one of their best friends went missing, and then you learn that he got sucked into this like evil pinball machine, and it takes place in the 80s. Y'all, it is so much fun. Also, I'm literally only still on the first shelf, and we have not made it through literally anything. I need to go faster. We literally have like 6 more shelves to go through. Wow. None Shall Sleep. This is a like young adult Silence of the Lambs. If you like that type of vibe, our 2 main characters, which I think you just follow the girl's point of view, they basically are teenagers, and they get scouted for the FBI, and they're trying to help them solve this like murder. Ooh, okay, another young adult thriller that read like a slasher to me, and kind of was a little like, I was not expecting for a young adult thriller to go the places that this one went. There's Someone Inside Your House. This, again, like I said, reads like a slasher. Basically, you have our main character. She moves to this small town, and all of the kids at their school are getting like you're reading about it, like sometimes you even get the point of view of these kids, like what's happening to them, and it's crazy, especially for a young adult. Don't watch the movie though. See where this says a Netflix film? Don't watch it. They literally ruined it. Ooh, okay, down here we have some of my faves. First of all, we have the reappearance of Rachel Price. I just feel like I really do enjoy Holly Jackson's books. I'm pretty sure have I read all of them? I think I've read all of them. They're always an enjoyable time for me. This one is like this girl, when she was younger, her mom went missing. Then her mom just like shows back up, but she doesn't believe that it's her mom. And you're kind of following like what happened to her mom. There's this film crew kind of filming what's going on. Ooh, I think this may be one of my favorites, just period, from Holly Jackson. I like read this in one sitting. That is 5 Survive. This one, again, it's a group of friends. They're taking their RV on spring break, and basically they like pop a tire or something, then they cannot leave the RV. I'm just gonna hold up the first one, but of course the whole entire Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy I absolutely love. It's so good, especially for a young adult thriller, again, in the sense of like very twisty turny, feels high stakes, where like I've always said I feel like Holly Jackson, for a young adult author, is not scared to like go in a little bit deeper, like kind of more into like adult territory with some of the things that even happen in this book, where sometimes, you know, like with young adult it'll be very like tame, which I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't be, because it's young adult, you shouldn't be going to the areas that adults are, but it like tiptoes the line. Okay, and then down here again, I'm just gonna hold up the first book, but The Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Love. I read this last year and I flew through this series. It is basically a bunch of kids who, like, imagine Criminal Minds, but they're teenagers. They again are recruited by the FBI to help them like figure out all of these different like mysteries and stuff that are going on, and there's like romances, there's friendships, there's so much storyline and growth in these books. I love these, like way over The Inheritance Games, which is Jennifer Lynn Barnes' like other pretty popular series. Now we're heading over to these. Now a lot of these are like classics and stuff that I honestly just have displayed on my shelves. I haven't got to them yet because I keep them just displayed because they're just, I don't know. I keep them displayed. I don't know what else to say. Rebecca. I read Rebecca earlier this year. Absolutely love this one. This one's like a gothic vibe, takes place at this like huge mansion, is the inspiration part of it for Tolerate It, which gave it a lot of points in my book. It was a really nice way to like ease myself into a classic. I really enjoyed that one. Okay, everybody, we are moving on up to this shelf. So over here we have all of my Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. First of all, we have Daisy Jones and the Six front and center. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It's also one of my most annotated books. I went back right before the show came out and reread the book, and I loved the book before the show and I was really excited, but I wanted to reread it, and just rereading it really just made this book like one of my favorite books of all time. I would recommend this book to literally everybody. I would recommend you every single Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Malibu Rising, Carrie Soto is Back, Maybe in Another Life, One True Loves. One True Loves is also one of my favorites from her. There's just so many different quotes that I think about all of the time. One of them that always sticks out in my brain is the quote, falling out of love with somebody you still like is like laying in bed and like hearing the alarm. Like no matter how good it feels, like you know it's time to go. Excuse me. After I do Forever Interrupted, I feel like these aren't a part of her Hollywood series, which is Daisy Jones and the Six, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Carrie Soto is Back, and Malibu Rising. Like these on her backlist are really interesting because all of them take this like idea. Like for example, with Maybe in Another Life, it's like two different timelines, one where she goes through this accident, one where she doesn't, and like what her life looks like in both of those timelines. One True Loves is like she's with this guy, he gets in a helicopter crash, is presumed dead, and then she kind of reconnects with this other guy years later from her past. She's engaged, and then she finds out that her previous husband is found alive, and then you're kind of following that story. Forever Interrupted is kind of this newly married couple, and then unfortunately he passes away, and you're following his mother and her story, which is really endearing and sweet. And then we have After I Do, which is kind of following a couple and their perspective on marriage and hitting like a rough spot in your marriage and falling back in love with somebody and putting in that effort in a relationship. So I just find that I really like those books from her because I feel like they have very interesting plots. Also, this lighting is atrocious. Oh my god. I'm constantly fighting with the lighting in this room. Constantly. Ugh. Yeah, so recommend all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. Really enjoy them. Okay, then we have The Ministry of Time. This is one of my favorite reads of the year, 100%. It's again very interesting. You're basically following our main character. She works at the Ministry of Time. They are going back in time and taking these people out of the past that were going to die anyway, and basically like putting them in modern day society, and her job is like help. She gets assigned to this guy and she's supposed to help him kind of like get used to modern day society. It gets very twisty and turny. There's a lot of things to take away from the book too. There's so many different topics explored in the book. Like it's a lot more than just that loose premise that I'm telling you. Yellowface. This is definitely another one of my favorites of the year. I read this towards the beginning of the year. It talks so much about just the literary world within itself that is so interesting, especially as a book reviewer, a book consumer, writers, authors, people who work in publishing. There's so much to say in this book. And we also have Such a Fun Age. I read this when I was in high school and I really enjoyed it. But Tomorrow, this was one of my favorite books of the year last year, and I love this one. You're following these two really good friends through years of them making this video game together. Again, very loose premise, but there's so much more to them, especially when I feel like you have more of these like fiction books right here in this area. They have a loose plot, but it's always so much more than the plot that I'm telling you. Then we have Lessons in Chemistry. Absolutely love this one. This is another one where I feel like if I reread it, I would rate it higher. I think I rated this one like a 3 to a 3.5. You're following our main character just through so many different things, and it takes place in the 50s, 60s. Oh, which decade is it? Is it both? Trying to remember, but it's really good. Another one that I read earlier this year that I really loved, this is one of my favorite audiobooks of the year, Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. It's just a mother telling her daughters the stories of like things she got up to in her earlier life, like when she was being an actress earlier in her life, and like her experience with this super famous guy that her daughters didn't know that she had. Very interesting. Normal People. I never thought I would be recommending Normal People, but then I reread it earlier this year and just absolutely fell in love with it. Connell as a character, I relate deeply to, and it was just so transformative. I feel like being older and going through some things versus reading it at a younger age, like I feel like Sally Rooney is definitely really good for those like kind of in your 20s moments and reading about very complex characters. Also, we have Alone with You in the Ether. I read this a few years ago. It's such an interesting book. It's a love story, but again, so much more than that. Both of them are dealing with their own mental things going on, and it's just so complex and very beautiful. Then we have The Wishing Game. This is another book that I read earlier this year in January. It's so magical, cozy. I would definitely recommend this for this time of the year as we're going into those like cozier months. It's basically like this man, and he used to write these books, and our main character grew up like loving them. She has this little boy that works at the school, and she's trying to adopt him. She's having a hard time adopting him because she doesn't look good on paper to the people of the adoption agency. So basically she enters this competition to try to win the money to be able to adopt him, and it's such an endearing, just beautiful story. Hello. Moving up here, we have some of my favorite books as well. Okay, we have a bunch of Ellen Hildebrand books. Perfect beach read. We also have Mary Jane. This is one of my favorite coming of age novels. I read this like a year or two ago. No, I think it was 2 years ago. It takes place in the 70s, but so much of it is still relevant to this day, and it's just such a good coming of age, as well as Summer Sisters by Judy Blume. If you've ever had a friendship that lasted from your childhood to like adult years, I just recommend this one. It is just so beautiful. Also, any of my Ellen Hildebrand that I have up here, I recommend, which is the Winter in Paradise trilogy, The Hotel Nantucket, The 5-Star Weekend, 28 Summers. 28 Summers, I think, is my favorite by her. I think it was the first book I read by her, and it is my favorite. It literally takes place over 28 summers. It is a love story, very complex. Let's see. We have The Lost Ticket. I read this at the very end of the year last year, so I don't feel like I got the chance to ever like properly talk about the book, but it is so sweet. You're following our main character, and she's trying to help this old man find the woman on the bus that he met like years and years and years ago when he was like in his early 20s. And it is, again, so much more than that, because she's going through something. She's trying to help this old man. She's falling in love. Like, there's so much. It's such a heartwarming and cute story. Absolutely love that one. As well as The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery. You're following a grumpy bookshop owner who basically comes in contact with this child and has to then care for the child. It is such an endearing story. It's so heartwarming, and it's a nice and short read. Billy Summers by Stephen King. This is one of his more just like fiction works. It's like a crime novel a little bit. You're following a hitman, and he's doing his last job. He's like, this is my last job ever. And he's also writing a book, like in the middle of doing all of this. It's very interesting. There's a lot that's going on, but also kind of like not at the same time. One of my favorite books of all time, which is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. Wow, do I love this book. Oh, also I just realized I skipped a whole entire shelf. Like, just skipped a shelf. This, again, if you've ever been friends with somebody from childhood into adulthood and just want to read about girlhood and friendship, this is the one. It shows friendship, the good, the bad, the ugly. Absolutely love it. One of my favorite books of all time that I don't love recommending just because it is so traumatic, but I think about this book all of the time. There are so many things in day-to-day life that make me think about A Little Life and Jude and Willem so much. A story about this group of 4 friends who live in New York City, and it takes place over many years, and there is a lot of stuff that happens in that book. It is very deeply traumatic and emotional. I don't like to recommend it because there's so many bad things that happen in that book that it's just so emotionally traumatizing. I'm not joking. Up here, this is my memoir shelf, so let's look up here for a bit. I love a lot of the memoirs that I have. Some of my favorite is Matthew Perry's Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. I would really recommend listening to the audiobook of this one. I audiobooked that last year, and it was one of my favorite reads, as well as Britney Spears' The Woman in Me. She doesn't narrate that one, but honestly, the person who narrates it sounds a lot like her. Well, I listened to it on like over 2x speed, so once you start talking like that, she kind of sounds like her. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, another really good memoir. Beautiful Boy. Oh, this is one of my favorite reads of the year. If you've never watched the movie with Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet, it's also such a beautiful film, but this book, it literally gutted me, and I cried so many times. Follows the father's perspective of having a son with addiction. Educated. I also read that this year. You're following Tara Westover's story of growing up and She was in is it Utah? We remember an unforgettable memoir of a young woman who was kept out of school, goes on to earn PhD from the University of Cambridge. And just the perspective on education just really changed for me. Oh, I wish I could, I'm lacking the word. One of my favorite memoirs of all time, When the Moon Hatched. This is a romantasy that I read a few months ago, and I really, really enjoyed this one. I will say it doesn't have much of a plot, but as the book went on, I just really loved what was happening. Then we have some of my just 5-star absolute loves of the year. We have Beartown by Fredrik Backman, one of my favorite reads of the year. At its core, you think the book is just about this hockey town, this town who just loves hockey. It's about so much more. But I almost just want you to go in thinking that, because wow. As well as A Man Called Ove. I absolutely love this book so much. It's at its core about this grumpy old man, but it's just about relationships and just how just complicated they are and everything to do with that. Fredrik Backman seriously has become one of my favorite authors. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, another just absolutely heart-wrenching and gutting story. This one follows in the timeline of World War II, and you're following the story of two sisters, and they're both doing kind of like different things in this time frame, and you're kind of seeing the different points of views of what happened during that time. It is so deeply emotional and gutting. I had to go touch grass after finishing it. Then we have 11/22/63. Look at that. Look at that. By Stephen King. Loves this one. Loves this one. I love this one. This one is about our main character, and he basically goes to this diner all the time, and the diner owner is like, hey, I need to tell you something. And he shows him how there's this closet that he can time travel and back in time, and he tells him that he needs to stop the assassination of JFK. That, in a very loose premise, is what you're following. You're following so much more than that. This book goes down so many different rabbit holes, so many different plots. There's like a love story in the book that really guts you. I'm not joking. I did not expect that from a Stephen King book. And we have The Women by Kristen Hanna. This takes place during the Vietnam War, and you are following our main character's point of view, and she goes to be a nurse during Vietnam to help. And it is just, again, such a deeply emotional story, and shows you kind of like things that she dealt with, what she dealt with over in action, and then when she comes home, you're following those two kind of timelines. And then lastly on the shelf, we have The Book of Doors. This is a fantasy that I really liked the premise of it. It's basically like if you get one of these books where it's like the book of, what is it? Book of safety? Book of this, book of that. It's like a superpower if you have the book, and that premise is just really, really cool to me. And basically, it gets very like thrilly too. There's this like villain of the story that you're actually terrified of because she is terrifying. I need to turn the fan on because I'm getting hot. I need some water. Ooh. Okay. Hi, how are we doing? We're shaping up to be a pretty long one. Okay. Hello. Welcome to my Sarah J. Maas shelves, kind of. Like from here up. They're just all Sarah J. Maas. I would recommend all of them. If you guys are new here, I absolutely love and adore just the Sarah J. Maas universe, because it is one. I feel like my favorite series, and this may shock some of you who know me, Throne of Glass. This is my favorite series. Just all in all, for romance, world, plot, what do you call it? Development through the story, everything. Throne of Glass wins it every time. I have a few different copies of Throne of Glass. Like, that's what you see. There's just a bunch of different copies of it because I love the series, and I am also a book collector and reader. So that's why I have multiple different copies. If you're going to hate on how many copies I have, literally just know in advance, I don't care. Throne of Glass is my favorite. Then ACOTAR. This one is more like the romance in this one I really, really like. I find the plot extremely interesting as well, and also the different political things that are happening. But I feel like this one's more romance. Like, that's what everyone loves it for. I love the romance in this one too, all of the different romances. But this one is just like the plot and the emotions and things that happen to the main characters in these books are just so much more like high stakes, gutting, and emotional. This one is more like, I feel like romance heavy, but I love ACOTAR. And then we have Crescent City, which is down here. This one I also really like. The House of Flame and Shadow was one of my most disappointing reads of the year, but I really enjoyed these. These are more like urban fantasy. Like, it takes place in more of like a city, modern day. Like, they have cell phones and stuff, like cell phone social media in that world. They don't have that in this world, and you don't see that a lot in fantasy. I'm pretty sure urban fantasy, like where you're going to see that stuff at. On to, this is my adult fantasy shelf. All of the ones I would recommend you on here. We have Fourth Wing. I would recommend this one. This one really got a bunch of hype, like, what it was that, like a year or so ago? Where has time went? How long ago was the Fourth Wing hype? All I know is that this is my biggest flex. If you know, you know. Iron Flame is the second book. This is a series, so I'm just going to recommend it as a series, but this one was extremely disappointing. It's a good one. It's very entertaining. Then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Hello, I don't talk about this book enough. I literally am debating on doing a reread of it going into next year. I kind of am already starting to curate a list of books. Let me know if you guys are interested in seeing that. Just a list of books that I really want to reread in the new year. My eyes are already set on 2025. I've mentally left 2024 a long time ago. Okay. Hello, lights on, nobody's home. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is a beautiful story, let me tell you. It's about Addie LaRue. She basically makes this deal with the devil like a long time ago. This girl lives a long time. Well, what was it, like 300 or something years? And in an act of like desperation, she makes a deal with the devil. And of course, the devil's gonna trick you. Okay, don't think that he's gonna do anything good for you. So basically, as soon as you like turn your back or leave the room, you're gonna forget her. Like, nobody ever remembers that she exists. And that's the loose plot of the story. Go into it. It's a little bit slow, but it is so devastatingly beautiful. That's a word I would use to describe it. Then we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Listen, even though this wasn't my favorite, I feel like if you like cozy fantasy, which I feel like I've read at least this one, maybe I've read another one that would be classified as cozy fantasy. I feel like if you like that vibe, you would really love this one. I just feel like when I'm going into a fantasy, I'm expecting it to be like political and high stakes. I just had a hard time getting into it, but this one was really well written. I feel like it was really quirky and fun and very cozy. So if you're looking for a fantasy that's not high stakes, I would recommend this one. Serpent and Wings of the Night, little trilogy, not trilogy, duology. I think it's a trilogy because there's a novella in between that actually doesn't have to do with these main characters. It's like a backstory on somebody you meet in the second book, but I love all of them. Like a 4.5 and above. You're basically following, I think she's just human. Is she human? And she goes into this like competition, kind of Hunger Games-esque, with all of these like vampires, and she's raised by this vampire, and it's really, really cool. What is this? Children of Fallen Gods? No. What's it called? War of Lost Hearts? Yes, the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. This one took me a while to get through. I think the second one, is this, do I have this out of order? I feel like this is the second one, and this is the third one. Second one fell off for me a little bit. The first one was really, really good. Kind of at the beginning, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, a little bit of a cozy fantasy vibe, like towards the like 10%, like through to like the 40-50ish% felt like a cozy fantasy, and then we get high stakes, and you're introduced to the storyline that's going to be in the other two books. Very high stakes, a lot going on, like a really big villain, and sometimes you're like, how are we going to get past this? Vicious by V.E. Schwab, this one right here. This one's interesting. It's like a story of these two best friends, and they're trying to become superheroes, and then they just like have this beef, and one of them is a super villain and the other one is a superhero. Do you get what I'm getting at with this? The Shepherd King duology, which is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I would really recommend this one, especially if you're wanting to look for like a gothic fantasy. It was very unique to me, and I really, really liked the vibe of these books. Like the power with these, like, imagine like playing cards and that magic system. Very interesting. We have The Bridge Kingdom. Enemies to Lovers ate this one up. Ate that one up. I also literally had to, like, at one point when I was finishing the book, I sat up on the edge of my bed because I was like, what is happening right now? Moving down here, we have young adult. So, okay. Recommending. I would definitely recommend the Six of Crows duology. It's in the same world as Shadow and Bone right here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you do not need to read Shadow and Bone trilogy to read this duology. If that's going to bother you that, like, it takes place in the same world, then yeah, read it. I just don't honestly think they're worth reading. Like, I've read the whole entire trilogy and did not really like them, but I loved the Six of Crows duology. It's a group of 6 friends and they're trying to pull off this heist. Then we have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This one is like, imagine just like going to a circus. It's twisty, turny. It's a little dark, like just a little bit, and it's basically this two sisters go into Caraval. Shatter Me series, it's not my favorite. I don't talk about it a lot. I would recommend it. It's a young adult dystopian that I feel like is very easy to get through. It's very entertaining. The storyline goes through a lot throughout all of these books and novellas, and the romance does eat at multiple different points, so I would recommend. Dance of Thieves, Vow of Thieves, this little duology, again, enemies to lovers, eats in this book. Eats, ladies and gentlemen. I remember literally reading Vow of Thieves, and I needed to go somewhere with my boyfriend, and I literally had my flashlight on, like in the car. I was like, yeah, I need to finish this book ASAP. I can't not bring it with me. Then we have Heartless Hunter. This is a book that got some hype this year. I think it's a good book. It's another enemies to lovers. Doesn't eat as much, not very high stakes, not a whole lot happens, but it's entertaining, so I would recommend it. It's basically, she's a witch. No one knows she's a witch. High up in society, like in their society, like she knows a lot of people. She's rich, she has all of these different things, goes to all these balls, but nobody knows that she's a witch, and her grandmother was a witch, and he is a witch hunter. We have Divergent. I reread this like a few months ago. Recommend. Over here, so another young adult fantasy shelf. We have Foul Lady Fortune and Foul Heart Huntsman right here. I would recommend these. I read these for Bookmas last year, and I think about these actually quite a bit. It is like a spin-off series to these Violent Delights. I'd never read that book. That was one of the 24 books I wanted to read in 2024. I actually never read it. I wish I did, because there definitely is stuff that like you need to know. Yeah, I would not recommend reading it this way. Not that it took away, but just like stuff that would probably be more impactful if I had read these Violent Delights duology before I read this. To be fair, I read these for My Mom Picks My Books, and neither one of us had the background information for this series, so it is not my fault, as nothing usually ever is. Then we have Divine Rivals duology. I really liked Divine Rivals. Hated Ruthless Vow. It took me a while, like months to finish. I just didn't really love it. I feel like it really went downhill with the plot line and everything. It was very like lyrical, poetic, beautiful, but I just really think the second one fell off, but I would recommend the first one, so I don't know what that does for you. Legendborn series that's going on. I think the third one, is it coming out soon? I really like this one. Again, unique storyline. Really like, it's like King Arthur, like they are at this college and it's a secret society vibe, and they are like part of King Arthur's table. Like they all kind of, not like possessed, but they get the like spirit of them, and they're like fighting. There's a bunch of these like magical creatures that like nobody else on the campus can see unless you're a part of the secret society. There's also kind of like a romance situation going on. It's one of those times that like there's like a love triangle and I don't even know who I'm rooting for. Anyway, then we also have the Powerless little series that's going on. So we have Powerless, the novella Powerful, and Reckless. I'm gonna be honest, I enjoyed Powerful, the novella. I thought it was pretty useless. Like I didn't really see a point of it, especially going into Reckless. It didn't really like play into anything. It was just like giving a character some backstory, I guess, that kind of feels unneeded if you've read it, you know. Powerless, I loved. I gave this one like a 4.5 stars. I feel like it 8. Reckless, literally just the same exact story as Powerless, and it just gets annoying after a while. Then we have the Hunger Games, a whole entire series going on. Love the Hunger Games. I'm obsessed with the books and movies. Then we have the Mortal Instruments. I have a very complex relationship with the Mortal Instruments. I just finished this one a few months ago, like the first part of this little series, and I would recommend it. Again, it's another urban fantasy, young adult. It's very interesting. I feel like it's just going to go up from here. Okay, and then down here, this is just the Once Upon a Broken Heart. I just have multiple different copies of this series. This one literally feels like a fairy tale, just in fantasy form. It's really fun. It is in the same world as the Caraval series. It's just very like magical fairy tale, Alice in Wonderland-ish. Welcome to my romance shelves. Hi, up here we have some of my Mariana Zapata. Here's all my Mariana Zapata. What would I recommend you out of my Mariana Zapata? Before any of you, if you've never read Mariana Zapata before, slow. Say it with me, everybody, and we're gonna say it like this. Slow burn. If you are not into slow burns, or you're like, I can take a slow burn, but like not too much, I'm talking, we're not even getting not even a hands brushing until like 70% through the book. If you're okay with that, continue on with the recommendations. The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. This one's very specific because the guy, the way he shows love in this book, he's not very expressive. Like he's not very like with words, more of like a showy, like does like little things. I eat that up. So yeah, love that one. All Roads Lead Here. If you love like a out in the wilderness type, All roads lead here. Wait for It. Ooh, I love that one. Wait for It was really fun. You see the girl in Wait for It in The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, so that one was fun that they're connected that way. From Luke Off with Love is definitely one of my favorites from her. I feel like that one was like the Book Talk famous one, and it's like ice skating rivals. Oh, it's so good. Luna and the Lie. I really, really like that one as well. That one's just more of like, what was that one? They're like a mechanic? I don't know. Those are the ones that I really enjoyed from her though. 7 Days in June. If you want to read about two writers who could not stop writing about each other. The rom-commers, The Bodyguard, and Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. All of those Catherine Center books I would recommend. She's very quirky, it's very fun, and all of her books are a really, really good time, and they also kind of have more of a fiction feel, like it feels more like women's fiction. I like those, okay? So I would recommend those. We have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Okay, down here we have Magnolia Parks series. Definite recommend. Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. When Magnolia Parks first started getting like its little whispers of hype, I tried to read the first book, did not like it at all because I did not go in knowing. I thought I was going to go in with like just one of these regular romance books. It's toxic. Okay, it is not a healthy relationship, but you have to give it time to develop. It's such an interesting way that all of these characters go about. It's Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates, but they're all like connected. Absolutely love this series. Yeah, nothing else on that show. Love. One of my favorite things on this earth is the Addicted Cowboy Sister series. I'm convinced they're real. In my brain, they are real people. We also have the Bad Reputation duet. I feel like people don't talk about these books enough. This couple is everything to me. Moving on down here, is this going to be surprising to literally anybody? Every single Emily Henry book, recommend. If there was like a red button that was recommend, I would be doing one of these. Boom, slam. Slam that recommendations button, okay? We also have The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. This is one of the other books, I think... no, wait. I also read another book by them that I really, really like. But I'm saying it was one of the only other ones because the one that is like the most hyped up from them is Love in Other Words. And I love this book so much. I've reread it. I didn't reread this copy. I reread this copy and annotated it. Absolutely love that one. Oh, the Bromance Book Club. I feel like this doesn't get talked about a lot. It's basically this interconnected series where like it's a group of guys who are in this book club and they all read romance books to understand the women in their life better. Some more romances. Ali Hazelwood. I absolutely love Theoretically and The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. Absolutely love those. Okay. All of my Annabelle Monaghan books, I love these. She has quickly became one of my favorite authors. I read all of 3 of these this year. My favorite is definitely Summer Romance, then Nora Goes Off Script, then Same Time Next Summer. I would recommend all of these Sarah Adams books. The Cheat Sheet, and these two are in the same world. They're friends. It's actually years later though, because The Cheat Sheet got a lot of hype like originally on Book Talk, and then years later, like just a few months ago, she released this one, kind of came back to this world. These are really fun. And then we also have this little series that she did, which is When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect. I'm aware that I'm holding these books in a really awful way. I think only this one. There's like a chapter where it's not closed door, but these are also really good closed door romance options if you're looking for them, and that means no spice. Then we have Out on a Limb. I absolutely love this book. It is an accidental pregnancy trope, but it showcases so many things that I feel like are never talked about in books like these. The guy is a golden retriever. It talks about like postpartum depression and also boundaries and communication within friendships and relationships. Yeah, we need more representation of that. The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is one that was kind of going around a little bit like years ago. And this one is a good like grumpy sunshine. If you're looking for it, she has to go to Alaska. She kind of has this like rocky relationship with her father, and there's something going on with her dad, so she has to go to Alaska to kind of like help him out and stuff. And she meets this grumpy guy that like works with her dad. Very interesting dynamic. She's kind of like one of those like city girls. City girl goes to small town vibe. Next up we have This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I read this summer, and actually it's one of the Carly Fortune books that I really enjoyed. It's kind of like a dual timeline. It's like a best friend's brother scenario. You're just kind of following their romances throughout the summer. Another one of my fave authors, which is Ashley Poston. All of her books are absolute bangers. I will say this one disappointed me a little bit, but I still really, really like it. I would recommend it for this time of year. It's basically this girl gets sucked into her favorite like romance series. Like, she's living in the town of this romance series, sees the characters that she reads about all the time, and that's just such an interesting plot. So even though the romance was lacking on this one, it was just such an interesting plot. And then we also have The Dead Romantics, also perfect for this time of year. You know what? All of her books are very like cozy, kind of autumnal reads, but this one, she can see dead people and talk to them, and she has to go back to her hometown, and there's this like mystery that she's trying to figure out. There's a romance going on. Very, very good fall vibes. And then we have one of my favorite books of all time, which is The 7-Year Slip, and basically it is about our main character, Clementine, and she lives in her aunt's apartment, and she realizes that it's magical and it can time travel to either like 7 years in the past or 7 years in the future, I think. And this one is 7 years in the past. She meets this man. We go from there. Down here, you guys, this is the Boys of Tommen series. One of my favorite things to ever exist. I just reread it this month. I love it so much. The way that I just was not involved in reality whatsoever when I was reading these books this month, it just really like re-put the love of this series in so heavily. God, it's so good. It's like found family. It's just character study books. Like, I love them so much. Like 600 to 700 to 800 pages long. It's not enough. It's not enough for me. My camera battery's about to die, so I need to go through this a little bit quicker. I have a dark romance shelf down here. I don't really read a whole lot of dark romance. The one that I would recommend down here, I would say the Mind series. That one's pretty good. Also, the Brutal Birthright series. I've read Brutal Prince and Stolen Heir by Sophie Lark. Those aren't bad. They're not. And then over here, Darling Venom, I would recommend this one. I read this like a while ago, but I remember really, really liking it. It talks about mental health. I really appreciated that aspect of the book. Bittersweet Memories, I never see anybody talk about this book, but I really liked it. It was like tea a little bit, okay? Some of the, like this plot twist that kind of happens, and it's a romance, and it's kind of like dual timeline. Also, hate this cover. Let's just ignore this man. But Marriage for One by Ella Mace, I really, really liked this one. It's like a rich guy, and he wants to buy this building, but this building is going to be left to the girl, and they basically, is it Jack and Rose? Like from the Titanic, yeah. And they make this deal to like go into a marriage because she can only get the building if she's married, and she wants the coffee shop like on the very bottom level, and he's like, okay, cool, have your coffee shop, I just want the building. Okay, then we have all of my Lauren Asher. I would literally recommend all of my Lauren Asher books. I really like them. There's the Dirty Air series, which is like F1 racing. Then we have the Dreamland Billionaire series, which is essentially like if their dad like owned Disneyland. Grandpa owned Disneyland. Very interesting. It's not Disney. It's like Disney, though. We have Love Redesigned, Love Unwritten. They're all rich. All of them. This is a small town romance shelf. We have Fragile Sanctuary, which I read a few months ago, and I really, really liked. We have the Rebel Blue Ranch series, which is like Done and Dusted, and Swift and Saddled. I really like these. Really good, like cowboy romances. Love. So good. Okay. Then we have the Devney Perry, what is this called? The Edens. I really like that series. If you're just looking for like really good, entertaining, easy, quick reads, small town vibes, love those. And there's like a little mystery aspect to them, which is really fun. Okay. And we have all of my Abby Jimenez books, which I love. I would recommend every single one of them. My favorites are Just for the Summer, Yours Truly, Part of Your World. Yeah, well, this little series, I absolutely love this little series, but I also love the Happily Ever After playlist and Life's Too Short. I literally love Abby Jimenez. She's one of my favorite authors. Up here, these are my sad books. Pack Up the Moon. This is basically just a man's experience with grief after his wife passes away. Gut-wrenching. Absolutely would recommend. Down here again, these are my sports romances. Okay, what would I recommend? Say You Swear. This is Wattpad in the best... Oh my god. This is Wattpad in the best way possible. It's like they're at college. It's a romance. There's like some plot twists that happen that are straight out of a Wattpad story, and I don't even care. I love it so much. Straighten these up a little bit. I also have Unsteady. This is a hockey romance. She's an ice skater. He's a hockey player. They both struggle with things. He struggles with a lot of like mental health, panic attacks, things like that. They help each other through a lot, and it reminded me of like the Boys of Tommen, like Binding and Keeping 13, if it was a sports romance. More sports romance right here. The Windy City series. I absolutely love the series. My favorites are Caught Up. I think that's just my absolute favorite. And then The Right Move and Play Along. I really, really love those. And then, of course, we have like Icebreaker, Wildfire series. I would definitely recommend. Those are like hockey romances, but they just feel like regular romances. Like, you don't even remember that they play hockey most of the time. I don't feel like they really talk about it a whole lot. And then we have Behind the Net. Love, 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 love. This one had me giggling and kicking my feet. If you remember watching the reading vlog where I was watching that one, where I was reading that one. Okay, over here we just have some of my like rom-com books. Summer Fridays, I read this one recently and enjoyed it. Ready or Not, this is an accidental pregnancy trope. I would recommend The Guy again. It really reminded me of Out on a Limb, so if you've read that one and haven't read Ready or Not yet, or vice versa. The Godparent Trap, I feel like I never see anybody talk about this one. This one is like, there's an accident that happens and both of them are left to be like caring for their best friend's children, and they like don't really see eye to eye. You Deserve Each Other, one of my most, I feel like, underrated books on my shelves that I absolutely love. It's like they're engaged, they both want to call off the engagement. Just lack of communication, and then you see them like start kind of falling back in love with each other. It's very beautiful and cute. The Long Game, I would recommend this one. She like works for her dad's like soccer, is it soccer? Trying to remember. And then she has to go to this small town and help with this like little girls soccer team. It is so cute, and I love the romance and the way everything comes about in that one. The No Show by Beth O'Leary. This one's a very interesting plot. It takes place on Valentine's Day. Multiple different like storylines going on, and you're kind of like, what is happening? But by the end, you're like, wow. It's very emotional in a really interesting way. Then we have Thank You for Listening. This is a book about an audiobook narrator written by an audiobook narrator, and I guess what, I would recommend the audiobook. Neighbor Favor, again, it's very like book people coded. I really loved this one as well. It was so sweet. As well as You with a View. This one's where, to feel close to her grandmother, she finds out that she had this like man before her grandpa, so she wants to connect with him and go on this road trip that her grandma wanted to go on. Then we have Before We Were Strangers. This one is a like dual timeline, takes place in New York in the 90s. I really liked this one as well. Then we have The Kiss Quotient. I read this one years ago, but I remember literally like loving it. The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. This one like gets sad, y'all. Okay, up here, this is where we're getting good. Everybody. Chestnut Spring series, need to read. One of my 5-star series, love. As well as the, what is this called? Rose Hill. So I only have Wild Love up here right now. Love. There's 2 books in the series right now. They're both 5 stars for me. The 5-star actual just books in this one, Heartless. Another really good small town romance. The Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score, Things We Never Got Over, is my favorite from that one. By a Thread. This is one of my favorite books of all time. Grumpy Sunshine. Love. It's actually like so funny. And the guy, the way that this guy yearns, bring back yearning. Oh my gosh, I cannot. I have been talking literally for almost 2 hours. Okay, up here, this is my young adult shelf. Let's see, All the Bright Places, and they both die at the end. Alex Approximately, The Upside of Falling. Can you guys tell I've been talking for almost 2 hours straight? Wow. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. The Summer of Broken Rules. If He Had Been With Me. Every Last Word. To All the Boys I'd Loved Before series. The Summer I Turned Pretty. The Do-Over. Betting on You, and Better Than the Movies. Love all of those. They're just all cute young adult romances. Don't really have much else to say. The Inheritance Games up here. Again, I do recommend this trilogy. It is twisty, turny fun if you like Knives Out. Gives you those type of vibes. The Lovely War. This is one of my 5-star reads of the year. It takes place around, again, that World War II timeline. It's just one of those love stories that are genuinely just so wholesome and beautiful. Like, magnificent. The love is so pure. That is every single book that I would recommend on my bookshelf. I don't think that I missed any. Then again, I have been talking for so long, and I am so tired. And I was tired before filming this video. I'm even tired now, but I hope you guys got some recommendations, maybe even just some like little hidden ones that you haven't seen throughout the years. I feel like I have a few of them on my shelves. Again, as always, let me know down below what you guys thought or anything you want to comment. If you ever have a video recommendation, by the way, comment that down below. Always love to make what you guys want to see. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, you guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff you guys know how to do. Don't forget to check out Squarespace and down below. And with all of that being said, I love you guys, and I'll see ya when I see ya. Peace.